Unproduced toys. It's a topic that has always fascinated me. For years, we have seen photos floating around the internet for countless items that we were supposed to receive from some of our favorite toy lines of the 1980s, 1990s, and beyond. One of my favorites was from Toxic Crusaders, produced by Playmates Toys in the 1990s. This unreleased toy was known as Polluto, a massive trash monster who has had one measly photo floating around the internet for ages. Well, my friends, today I am chatting with legendary toy sculptor Eddy Mosqueda, and we're gonna get a bigger look. We're gonna see more of this unproduced Polluto figure than we have ever seen before.
Toxic Crusaders!
It's Dr. Kill-Em-Off, the evil alien who wants to pollute the whole world. He's going to smogify every tree in Tromaville. But look who's gonna stop him! It's Toxie, the trendy, yet hideously deformed leader of the Toxic Crusaders, who with their help really gums up the works.
I'm toxic, but I'm tasteful.
How does he do it? What does she see in him? Where did he get that tutu?
Toxic Crusaders! They're gross! But they still get girls.
Hideously deformed action figures from Playmates.
Eddy Mosqueda began his toy sculpting career in the 1970s, where he first started out working on things such as Halloween masks. Eventually, he would end up landing a job over at Mattel, where he had the opportunity to work for one of the biggest toy lines of all time, Masters of the Universe. Eddy got to work on a total of 10 figures for the Motu brand, creating action figures of characters such as Rock-On and King Hiss, and eventually ending with figures for the new adventures of He-Man toy line, such as the unreleased Darius figure. After his tenure at Mattel, Eddy ended up with Varner Studios, the team of toy sculptors most known for their work on the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles toy line from Playmates Toys.
I left Mattel and joined a good friend of mine named Steve Varner, who had a company going. We've been friends. He used to work at Mattel as well. So I started doing the turtle figures, Ninja Turtle figures, and that was just a gas. I was able to design, besides sculpt a lot of these figures, so that I did for so many years. And then I was even lucky enough when Nickelodeon bought them back in 2010, before the cartoon series started, they asked me to come in and do the figures. And so I did the first, well, there were 4 figures in all, but I did 2 of them. And they chose my style, what I did was I took back just the original, you would say, skin texture with the cuts and the scratches and a lot of roughing it up as opposed to looking really highly polished, which they were at the beginning, and they went with my style. So that style went on for a few years, and I did so many figures for that as well.
So Eddy had the opportunity to work on some pretty iconic toys for the TMNT brand. But soon, a new opportunity was on the doorstep of Varner Studios. Independent movie company Troma was now in the process of turning their cult hit The Toxic Avenger into both an animated series and a toy line aimed at kids. Now, as you probably know, The Toxic Avenger is not at all a kids movie. It's incredibly violent, very risque, and just seems a little strange to be turned into a property meant for children. But Playmate Toys was up to the challenge.
This actually happened. Steve Varner and I went to lunch with Carl Aronian, who is the executive vice president at Playmates, and was even at that time. And so he says, I've got to show you this stuff. And what is it? You'll find out when you get to lunch. So we went to lunch. And Steve and I said, no way. This is gross. This is disgusting. We can't do this. They're like, no. And then Carl says, you're going to do this. So we was like, okay, let's do it. By the time we were through with our lunch and our meeting, we decided, let's do this. Let's take the chance.
So Varner Studios was in. And while Troma did have some of the concepts and designs ready to go when the process started, they actually heavily relied on Eddy and his team to help create the iconic looks for several of the characters that would be appearing in the new animated series and in the toy line.
Well, for instance, the Minions. It was like this contest between the studio that was putting this thing together and the other toy company that sculpts as well, and their studio trying to create it. And this thing just came to mind, it all being about toxicity and whatever. The Minion was something that I came up with, and it was just basically these guys in radiation suits. And I mean, it only made sense, right? Okay. Anyway, this is actually the drawing that I made that was approved by the people at Troma, and Playmates liked it as well. So then I ended up sculpting it. And so here's a hard copy of it. See, that comes apart. And I even have there's the backpack. So I mean, there's the back, and you get the colored version of it, which is the paint master that was used. There was one for production that was sent over to China, and this one saw a few conventions, and I sat in on some meetings at Playmates, and when they were through, I asked for it.
So a total of 15 items were produced for the Toxic Crusaders toy line from Playmates Toys, a combination of figures and vehicles. Unfortunately, the new cartoon did not perform very well, and this led to an early cancellation of the toy line as well. Now, of course, when toy lines like this get canceled prematurely, there always ends up being some toys that go unproduced and unreleased. One of those that I found incredibly interesting is this photo that Eddy sent me for Yvonne, Toxie's girlfriend. Now, keen-eyed TMNT fans out there might look at this and realize something familiar, because Yvonne's body did end up getting used later on by Playmates Toys for their TMNT line for April O'Neil, the Ravishing Reporter. So we kind of got this figure still, albeit with a different head. But bringing this back to the topic of the video, there is one figure that is sort of the one legendary unreleased figure from this line, and that is the trash monster known as Polluto. So Polluto did briefly appear in the animated series, and as I mentioned earlier on, there is one photo that's been circulating around the internet for years that comes from the New York Toy Fair catalog of Playmates Toys. But now, thanks to Eddy, we can get a really good look at the unreleased Polluto action figure.
I was asked to sculpt this big giant blob that came out of the ocean, reminiscent of Godzilla's, how I had to do it in my own head, because the cartoon show shows this blobby thing, but it was never really defined, you might say. So, and there were no drawings. So I had to pretty much create it. And this is kind of an exception too, from usually when I would sculpt at that time, I would start something from clay, then go to wax. And in this case, because of time restrictions, I just put this thing together without even doing real drawings, just some rough sketches. And it's a 12-inch figure. So I started just from nothing and created, of course I made an armature, this thing out of clay. And that's what we molded. This was the product, and here it is. It's been restored. It was in pieces. I took it home when I left the company Varner Studios, when I left, I took a lot of things with me and brought this thing, and it was broken up in pieces. So I spent almost half a year restoring it. Last year. It took a lot of time.
So the original Polluto was going to stand around 12 inches tall, which is quite massive, standing next to the other basic figures in this lineup. And one of the things that I absolutely love about this particular figure are all of the details worked into the sculpt. As he is essentially a giant trash monster, there are all kinds of fun little details worked into the design. And it does make me wonder just how much of this would have been fully painted if Playmates Toys had actually gone into production on him for retail release. But this original that I have here in hand is fully hand painted, with nothing left untouched. Speaking of which, in case you were wondering, yes, the Polluto that I shot for this video is indeed the actual Polluto that was photographed back at Toy Fair. And yeah, talking about Polluto, he was like you said, he was never released. So I think the only reason that people like me even know about him was that he appeared in like a photo in a Toy Fair catalog, I think is where we've seen it. Yeah. So is this the same one that was photographed in that catalog?
Exactly the same one, yes.
There
was only one, so
there was only the one. That's amazing. That's amazing. But you've done a little bit of restoration to it. I did notice like his hand is brown, and I think
because it's lost. It was lost. It was the only thing that was lost. So I used wax that I used to use for making turtles. I still have some put away, and I just did that. That was part of what I had to do, recreate that hand, because it was nowhere to be found.
That's amazing though. But you perfectly restored like this original Polluto that's sort of like become a thing of legend in the toy communities, because we've always seen this photo floating around, and you brought it back to life. I think that is so incredibly cool.
It was a labor of love.
So that brown hand is a brand new piece that Eddy sculpted for the figure to replace the missing original hand. He also went ahead and added a few extra little details to the sculpt, such as the mini radiation ranger that you see there. Put a pin in that, because we're coming back to that guy later on. As advertised in the Toy Fair catalog, the original intent for Polluto was to contain a motorized walking feature. Eddy and his team created a second, hollowed out version of Polluto so they could build this walking feature.
I brought in a guy who used to work at Mattel with me. His name is Jeff Jones, incredible machine maker of toys. He was really stressed. Again, this thing was on a time budget. So he got this thing to work. And that's part of just even filming this, coming in the last couple of days to get this thing to finally work, because he had been working on it for a long time. We made a version that was completely hollow. And this one is also. But we made it so we can fit the motors in there. So it was doing a lot of stuff. The mouth opening and closing, the arms going this way and that way, the legs moving. And there was this even, it was almost like some kind of a carriage that was attached with and then the little guys could ride in it, and it had a machine gun of sorts, but something from the future, something that matched the whole feel of the Toxie look. And so that was that's lost. I don't have a hard copy or anything other than being able to see it again on this video, where you see him walking and you see that, the crew that, Varner Studios crew are in that video as well. And there were a couple of guys. Again, I did this thing with play, but time was running out. So some of them, okay, you finish that leg for me, and you finish that arm for me. That was going on. And then they'd give it to me, and then I'd start, fixing it again so everything looked like the same hands did it. But by and large, I think I put at least 80% of my time into that.
Eddy explained the entire process to me, but even better, he actually has old video footage of him and his team testing out this walking mechanic. And you know what? Eddy actually supplied me with that footage. So get ready, my friends, to be transported back in time to see some amazing, rare footage of Eddy and his team testing out Polluto's walking feature.
Press what?
What's already on?
What's already on? It's cooking all continuously.
And here we go.
And here is our sculptor.
Yes.
Eddy
What I want you to see though is notice how he's putting this thing together.
Notice screws going into the piece.
Only he knows how it goes. We're all totally in the dark about this.
Jeff, the engineer.
But then again,
on the inside.
He's not getting paid until this thing works.
We need a pin to go through here.
Yeah, don't.
Another pin? Oh, I thought there was.
Jeff, the Magic Man Jones.
Yes.
It's not your fault that the thing broke.
No, it's your fault.
Let's take a look.
That's looking beautiful.
It's incredible what you can do with a screwdriver. Look, it's walking.
No motor?
But Jeff, you know, you're gonna have to go to New York with it
Yeah.
and wear invisible gloves.
That's right. Like moments.
Look at this. Bill, are you watching this?
I sure am.
I heard one.
It does that every now and then. One click. It's Polluto.
It's Polluto.
And he's walking. That's his battery source right there. And there he is.
Hey, is he going internally hemorrhage this time?
Let it go. Just the backpack. No gun.
I'm telling Eddie every now and then to get a click out of it.
No.
Here. That looks really cool. Michael Jackson moonwalk.
Okay, ready to stop him. Now here's this thing, which might change something.
It won't hurt.
I'm gonna try to balance it along with its tail and have it go at least just that direction. Still doesn't matter. Nope.
Nope. Now the ankle.
But
It's like a cell. They seem to reproduce the will. Hey. Asexual reproduction.
Unreal. And I also think this is the first time that we've ever heard about them building cannons that could have plugged onto Polluto as well. This is what I love about being a toy collector, always learning new things like this. It's just so exciting. Oh, and remember that little Radiation Ranger sculpt that I talked about just a little bit ago? Well, it turns out that this is a feature we had no idea was even planned for the original figure. Eddy designed a bunch of what he called little buddies, which were minifigures of the Radiation Ranger's design that were going to possibly come packaged with Polluto. I know, right?
And this Polluto character, by the way, happens to have one of these little sidekick characters that really, first of all, they never put this on the market. So these little guys that I made, like there were tons of them, and I still have a handful left of these things. One is found on the leg of this, on the tail, somewhere at the back. There you'll see one. I put it in. It wasn't originally there, but I made sure that there's one of them there.
Polluto has long topped many lists over the years as most desired unreleased toys. And that one image that's been floating around the internet has been teasing us for years. And I don't know about you guys, but getting to really see a fully detailed look and learning all this information about what possibly could have been with Polluto has been completely mind-blowing to me. And that's not even the best part. While we've had a lot of fun today exploring the original Polluto, speaking to Eddy, and getting to learn all about the process of creating him, the most exciting news is that, my friends, an opportunity to purchase an officially licensed Polluto action figure is coming. Troma Toys has teamed up with Eddy Mosqueda and Justin Ishmael at Company Ish to finally release Polluto. And we're going to have a first look at that right here on this channel with all of the order information later this week. I am so excited to share the news with you, so I hope you guys will be back very soon to learn more about it. Thank you guys so very much for joining me for what to me was one of the most exciting episodes of Toysplosion I have ever made. Like I've mentioned, Polluto is something that I have been staring at that picture of for years, and having the actual opportunity to hold this thing and photograph it and film it and get so much information that we've never known before has been an absolute honor. So special thanks to the very, very kind Eddy Mosqueda for allowing me to borrow it, to shoot it, to talk to me about it. And again, special thanks to Ish as well for setting this whole thing up. Very excited to finally get an officially released Polluto. I can't wait to tell you guys more about it. Thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, my friends.